Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Doctor, that podcast where we slice our hand open because this week we watched A Day in the Death,
Written by Joseph Lidster.
directed by Andy Goddard.
And aired on February 27th, 2008.
So the reason why we went with this intro and not the multiple other ones that are probably better for this episode relating to the things that happen is because I actually did slice my hand open accidentally today while I was cutting a bell pepper while I was making my sandwich at lunch, and I guess I my roommate had the TV on and watching election news, and I guess I looked up and I wasn't paying attention. I was instead watching the TV to see what was happening, and then just whoop, my thumb got a nice little slice. It's not deep, but it did bleed a lot. So there you go. I am Owen Harper.
Well, that sucks because then you'll just bleed out. You won't heal.
Well, Owen didn't really bleed when he sliced his hand open because his heart's not pumping.
Yeah, true. Just kind of seeped out a little bit.
Yeah, just the latent blood, like last week when we talked about the latent blood.
Yeah. Inert blood, yeah.
Still, why did we have to bring that? Even when I was editing it, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, even I knew it was coming. I knew exactly what we were about to talk about. We talked about it, and I was still, the second time through, I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a gross thought for sure. And there's definitely some gross things in this episode, like a close-up, elongated shot of Owen's hand getting sewn together.
You're telling me that wasn't your favorite scene in the whole movie?
The whole episode? No, it wasn't. I think my favorite was the one where Owen just went off on Tosh for no reason.
My favorite was at the beginning when Owen just remembers Diana, and I'm like, let her go. Russell T, let her go.
Owen H. Yeah, wow, if you take Owen's initials, OH, and turn them on their side, it's also a pair of initials, OI. It still works as a pair of initials. You could even flip them upside down, and they would still read the same, Wow.
Well, if you flip them upside down, they would read ho. Unless you mirror them.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, sort of flipping a day-to-day calendar type thing.
A flip usually implies a rotation,
Okay, well then just, I don't know what you would call it.
I guess
tilting them around.
You're rotating across the x-axis, I suppose.
Yeah, there we go.
See, when you said flip, I imagined rotating across the y-axis. The question is, what happens if we rotate it across the z-axis? Then it would be ho, I think. Well, Owen, everyone's favorite Torchwood character, in the limelight for a second week.
He's been in the limelight, let's be honest, for a large portion of the show so far.
I really feel like it's a large portion of season 2. In season 1, he had his 1 or 2 episodes, but season 2 was the one where he really became like the main character, so to speak.
Yeah, and again, we touched on this last week, and I can see why. Owen is definitely the most interesting of the bunch.
Owen is by far more interesting than Gwen. I'm just going to say it. Owen is more interesting than Gwen. Right now.
Oh, yeah. I think, for sure, I think he's more interesting than any of them.
Except, if you haven't seen Doctor Who, I can see Jack being the most interesting because, what's up with this immortality thing? How does he know so much? Where has he been? What's he done? But since we already know a lot of that, the blanks have been filled in for us already.
Yeah. Well, this episode begins with a monologue from Owen as he is drowning, ? You don't know whether this is actually happening or if it's just some sort of visual representation of Owen's mental state at this point. But you kind of see him underwater while he's giving this monologue about his life.
Then you find out he's giving this monologue to just some woman on a rooftop. She looks like she wants to jump off the roof.
Which she does. She does want to. She doesn't.
I was gonna say, hang on a minute, hold up.
I watched Secret Version B, like the director's cut ending where she just jumps.
Well, that would suck.
No, and right off the bat, I immediately loved this sort of narrative structure where, because you're getting the episode technically in flashback where Owen's explaining this, and as a few other lines later in the episode indicate, even more secrets about Torchwood to this woman. So you kind of have this frame story thing going on, and I really liked that. But we'll talk about why. I guess I'll talk about why I thought it fell completely flat at the end.
Yeah, immediately off the bat, I was reminded of, I think it's a Superman comic where there's a boy who's going to jump off a roof and Superman flies down and sits next to him. I want to say it was a Superman comic, but for some reason I was reminded of that imagery with Owen sitting next to this woman who wants to jump off the roof and just telling his life story to her.
Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it, though, I don't think Doctor Who has really done like a suicide episode. I can't really think of one where it was actually like the main focus and not. I mean, there are probably ones where it had been a point in the episode, but yeah, I can't think of one where it actually revolved around, suicide.
Yeah, I don't think there was one that was like, yeah, where suicide was the plot.
Yeah, we're probably gonna like as soon as we stop recording, or next week when we're listening to the episode again for the notes / the editing, probably remember one. But hey,
and then we'll just put it in the show notes if we do.
Yeah, like how we called 42 48.
Yeah, whoops. I actually realized that while I was editing it. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, that's 42.
Yeah, back when the episodes were shorter. / they, the entire plot wasn't in real time, so I guess that's why it was 42. I don't think the episodes were actually 42 at that time.
Right.
Or were they? I don't even remember now. They're 50 now, so hey.
They were, I think, like 44 at that time. I want to say.
Yeah. I think it was just Torchwood that hovered a little longer than that.
Over,
yeah. It was Doctor Who was always just like 44.
Torchwood breaking the mold, as always.
Yeah, can't be bold without breaking the mold or something.
Wow, that was pretty good. I'm going to save that for next time I run for office.
All right.
Save that one.
Keep that one in your back pocket for 2 years.
So, Owen explains that Jack didn't fire him, but did basically restrict his job because he's dead.
He's basically traded positions with Ianto, and he even mentions it later in the episode when he's being a bitter, angsty jerk at everyone.
Well, to be fair, Ianto's kind of less of a wild card at Owen's job than Owen is.
Yeah, I really like this setup. Owen can complain all he wants, but I like the whole Ianto gets to be a badass while Owen makes the tea.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to say except that I agree. Like, okay, yeah, I agree.
But Owen doesn't like that one bit. He's visibly frustrated.
It's just because when Owen goes in the field, like, everything just goes wrong. When Owen's put in charge of making decisions, the rift gets opened and people start dying.
Twice. Don't forget the whole twice thing.
Yeah, twice. He did it twice.
Well, there's a whole thing. They convene in the Torchwood conference room, and they explain what basically amounts to the B plot for this, which is that there's this eccentric millionaire who's been buying alien artifacts, and they need to find out what's going on because there's a ton of energy being emitted from his house.
Yeah. They apparently ranked him. They apparently ranked him like low on the like threat list that I guess they keep.
Mm-hmm. But apparently, there weren't any other alien attacks going on, so I guess they had time to investigate this guy. This is Henry Parker, who we'll meet later.
Henry James Parker, I believe, is the full name they give him. Wait, let me check my notes that I've got open. Henry John Parker, sorry. Excuse me. Henry John Parker. And for some reason, the fact that they gave him 3 names and that his second two are JP made me think of Sarah Jessica Parker, the actress.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trump's middle name is also John, so there's that.
Yeah, but his initials are not
yeah.
JP; they're JT.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Owen has to make coffee for everyone, and for like 5 minutes, all he does is say, "I'll get you coffee," or he makes coffee, or he gets coffee. And this just reminded me of that. This is a really hilarious connection that no one in the world is going to make except for me. But I'm going to do it anyway. A friend of mine has been playing through this game it's a Japanese game, so I'm going to totally butcher the name. So I'm not even going to like attempt it, except to tell you that it's spelled Piofiore. And the subtitle is Faded Memories. Anyway, it's a Japanese game set in.
Yeah, I had to write about that for something that I do on the side.
That specific game.
So I actually know what that is. Surprisingly enough. Yep.
Hilarious. But anyway, in that game, it's set in Italy, but it's a Japanese game, and I guess the only thing they could think of to make everyone in the game Italian was that all of them like order or drink or make coffee in like every other scene. So everybody's either making a latte or drinking an espresso or they've got a cappuccino in their hand. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Everyone in Italy drinks coffee according to this game. And so that's all I could think of, just Owen's walking around making coffee for 5 minutes. All we see him do is make coffee. And I'm like, this just really reminds me of this game. Like my friend has been playing and I've been watching her play. So a connection that, again, like no one else in the world would make except for me. And only because of the specific like time period we're in, because that's when she's been playing it. But anyway.
Yeah, context is key.
True. Context is key.
And Owen does not like this new context. He even goes so far as to admit that he doesn't like Tintin. And he always thought that Tintin was engaging in bestiality with Snowy.
I was personally insulted by this scene. I grew up reading Tintin. Tintin and Asterix and Obelix were like my childhood comics that I read, and I adore both of them. And just to hear Owen Harper besmirch the name of Hergé and Tintin was like a dagger through my heart. Weird that I read like French comics as a kid, but anyway.
Yeah, those are the two I read as well, weirdly enough. Not a big comics person.
Neither am I. Must be why we're friends. We both read Tintin and Asterix and Obelix.
Both of those, and I would assume other French,
I actually think Hergé is Belgian. Probably should. I'm going to check that, actually.
Okay, yeah. But, Belgian, French, whatever that means.
Hergé was Belgian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, French language, though. And definitely in the French, I don't even know how to pronounce this word. God, you probably can pronounce it better than I can, but bande, whatever the hell that word is. The French word for comic books. It's in that style, it's in that genre, that trend, that movement, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's why I've had an easier time reading those, is because the paneling is very easy to follow. It's quote unquote shot from one direction, because that's why I have a hard time getting to other comics, is I just have a hard time following them visually all of the time, and that's mostly on me. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, I found them to be more interesting, I guess. I found the conceit of Tintin and Asterix and Obelix to be more interesting than I guess because a lot of comic books now, not all, but a lot, are superheroes or superhero adjacent, shall we say. And obviously there are definitely like graphic novels and comics that are not that, like Sandman, but I would consider Sandman to be like superhero adjacent.
Sure.
But like Asterix and Obelix and Tintin are like not very, but like somewhat far removed from that superhero lifestyle. That's also why I liked Mouse as well, because that one also, that's also like a graphic novel, but it's not superhero related at all.
Yeah.
Also, this term you were trying to say looks like, how would you say this first word? Probably bande dessinée. That's probably how
Yeah.
you would say that.
Yeah. That's it. Got it.
I should really like practice my French. Might be useful one day.
Tintin podcast when?
Yeah, I read all of them translated into English. Maybe I should learn to read them in their native French.
Yeah, that would be a thing to do.
The weird connection with Tintin for this episode is that the Tintin movie, if you'll remember, Steven Spielberg directed an animated Tintin. No, sorry, Steven Spielberg produced, Peter Jackson directed.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
The animated Tintin movie a couple years ago, and that was co-written by Stephen Moffat.
Oh, huh. Yeah, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense because what that movie, you know how in the comics the captain or whatever his name is has a drinking problem, but it's always played for a laugh, like it's just comic relief.
Yeah.
And the movie, if you've watched the movie, they turn that into like it starts as like a comic relief thing, but then it turns into like a big deal by the end of it. And that's like at the climax of the movie, that's like it kind of revolves around that, if I remember correctly, where he gets them into some trouble or whatever because he's drunk or something.
Yeah, you're right. He does. I remember. I only vaguely remember the movie. It's been quite a while since I've seen it, but I do remember that aspect of the movie.
And that is such a Stephen Moffat thing to do, right? Stephen Moffat, you go back, like, the whole thing about Stephen Moffat that we always reference, and that is, is a thing in the Doctor Who fandom, is that he had all these wild ideas on Usenet and on, like, early internet sites, where he would be like, but what if we took this thing from the classic show that was just some weird random thing and, like, did a big thing with it? And that's very much, the 2010s of Doctor Who.
Right.
So, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Everything has been explained to Keon.
Yeah, it's like I can see the fabric of space and time and everything that makes the universe tick, and yet I have no idea what to do with this knowledge.
That sounds like something Stephen Moffat would write too. The Doctor would say that. Which is weird because that was something like even in the classic show, in Meglos, which for some reason is like the story we remember the most from the second half of the Fourth Doctor's run. In Meglos, when they were like, he sees the threads of the universe and mends them when they break. Like you could say that to a Doctor Who fan, ask them who wrote it, and I bet you that like 75% of them would say Stephen Moffat.
Yeah, it's a very Stephen Moffat line.
But no, instead it was, who the hell wrote Meglos? Andrew McCulloch. That was in the Chris H. Bidmead era.
Hell yeah.
Before he left the show for bigger and better things.
Well, we've left the show now for bigger and better things known as Torchwood.
Bigger and better, yes.
Owen is still, flirting with Martha. Not seriously, but like, yeah. He's mad that Martha is now the acting Torchwood doctor.
Yeah, so Jack gave Martha Owen's job, is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Owen is dead. Martha explains now, because she's got these tests she wants to run, so she explains to Owen that the reason why like Jack is afraid to have him go into the field is because he's not alive. He doesn't heal. So Owen's been flipping this scalpel and he accidentally slices his hand and he doesn't even notice, and Martha's like, you sliced your hand open. And he's like, oh shoot. And she's like, that's never gonna heal. You're gonna have to like restitch that once a week now. And she's like, this is why Jack is afraid now to send you out there, because you're fragile.
Yeah, I mean he's basically a glass cannon. He can do a lot, as we see later on, but one false move and he's done for.
This reminds me of the movie Death Becomes Her. Death Becomes Her, I guess is the correct intonation for that I watched about a month ago. It's a Robert Zemeckis movie. It won the Oscar for special effects right at the turn of the century. But in that movie, people. This is actually like, this has to be like either a sly reference to that movie, or Russell T saw the movie and was inspired by it, or like it was two people coming to the same idea. And I'm about to spoil like one of the twists of the movie. So if you're really gonna watch this weird, kind of obscure movie from the late '90s, like skip ahead. But in the movie, this woman basically makes a deal with some mysterious devil, I don't know, powerful figure to maintain her youth and beauty. But then the price is that she becomes like immortal. But basically, she becomes immortal kind of in the same way that Owen does, which is that like she's dead, so she gets shot. Or there's another lady who has the same deal. She gets shot, and now she's just got this hole in her chest for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
movie. And then like the main character falls down the stairs and she breaks her neck, and so her head's on backwards, and then she has to fix it, and her neck's all like wobbly for the rest of the movie
Gosh.
because they don't heal. Because like that was part of the deal, was that they would be immortal. They would be young and beautiful, but they'd be immortal in that they would never age and they'd be unable to die, but they would still basically take damage, so to speak.
Yeah, so sort of like a genie esque thing. Where they get their wish, but it's not
Yeah.
exactly what they wanted.
And also, like, the thing was, if they hadn't died, they were immortal from the potion. And then I guess the lady who gave them the potion didn't explain the downside, which is like, if you don't die, then you'll live forever. But once you die, you're still gonna live forever. Just you'll be dead. So like everything will like nothing will heal anymore. Just basically exactly like Owen. This is so
Mm-hmm.
weird. It's a good movie though. I would recommend it. It's not great, but it's enjoyable. Special effects are actually quite good and they hold up very well.
Huh. Yeah, Robert Zemeckis has an entire whatever, however you pronounce that word, that like people don't know about.
And like a lot of his movies are him messing around with technology and like trying to push the boundary of special effects, as I found out with Death Becomes Her and What Lies Beneath and Polar Express, Beowulf. All of those movies have like some act of special effects or practical effects or like just the use of technology that he really likes to push forward. So I find that quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
So anyway, although apparently his latest movie, the new adaptation of Roald Dahl's The Witches, is quite dull, although I haven't watched it myself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember people were talking about that before it came out, I guess, but then once it came out, nobody cared.
Yeah, because apparently it was dull. Just watch the original, I guess.
Or read the original. That's like, people, I don't know. It's not really a pet peeve of mine, but like people are like, have you watched Romeo and Juliet? Just a random example. And it's like, really? Did you really just say watched there instead of read? Or like, have you watched The Great Gatsby? And it's just like, freaking really? And like, yeah, okay, some people don't read books and some people watch a lot of movies, but I don't know, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit when they're like, if it's a big classic or something.
Well, sometimes it may not be necessarily obvious that it's based on a book. I mean, like Jurassic Park was based on a book, but the movie is so much more popular. And I feel like maybe, I guess I don't know because I'm not a young, hip kid anymore. I'm a young adult with depression and problems. But I guess like for younger people, it's because they've grown up so much with a visual medium, and even like we were on kind of the edge of that because they've grown up so much with technology and visuals and just the visual media rather than the written word. It's highly likely, if not probable in some cases, that people will be exposed to like the Romeo and Juliet movie or an adaptation of The Great Gatsby, or Hamlet or Macbeth before they ever read the play or even are aware that it's a play. And perhaps that's why it's like that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as as with TikTok, a lot of older, not old necessarily, but older songs are getting kind of a second life on TikTok because they're so readily accessible. And then, kids who have never heard the song before, whether it be because it's from like before they were born or just because it's fallen out of radio play, will be like, TikTok made that song famous, when like really no, that song was famous for like 5 years, and then it, other songs replaced it, and now just it's got a second life on TikTok.
Yeah, really waiting for All Star to make its, and not come back because it never really went away. But
there's also like even back in 2015, if you'll remember the Paul McCartney made a song with Rihanna and Kanye West, and like all the hip teenagers who liked Kanye and Rihanna were like, oh man, they really put Paul McCartney on the map. They've like discovered this great artist no one knew about. And then all the like everyone older was like, the Beatles were a thing, right? It's the same thing. Like they just hadn't been exposed to it, and like when you haven't been exposed to it, you can only build an explanation within the worldview that you have.
All right, I take everything back then.
I mean, my point wasn't to like make you take everything back. I guess my point was just to provide an interesting perspective on it, I guess.
So Owen gets ordered to go home.
Yeah.
So he does, and he starts watching To Buy or Not to Buy, which is a real show.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Not that I would know. My experience with England is like the international terminal at London Heathrow. So.
No, yeah, I just know. I've never watched it. I just know more than I probably should, and more than I'm proud of about reality, home like shows and cooking shows.
Specifically in the UK, or just like in the world?
Yeah, just in general, I've watched a large amount of these shows. So
House Hunters podcast when.
Yeah. Is there a Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives podcast out there?
Well, Guy Fieri's actually a cool guy, I found out. So. I also found out he keeps like dressing in that style. He's got that very recognizable like Smash Mouth aesthetic, shall we say?
Early 2000s, like he's stuck in 2001.
I found out he still dresses like that because it embarrasses his kids.
Yeah, the only guy still out there rocking frosted tips.
That's basically his thing now, and I'm okay with that.
I am too.
Oh man, I'm gonna link in the show notes because it's really funny. But the New York Times, like, some pretentious food critic reviewed like Guy Fieri's new restaurant in New York, which was the restaurant. The concept of the restaurant was very clearly supposed to be like, not lowbrow, but accessible, regular everyday food kind of thing. Like the kind of stuff that you would eat like just at home, but made professionally. Mm-hmm. But this very pretentious New York food critic wrote a very scathing review about it, and it's a very funny read, but it also makes you feel kind of bad for like, why is he just eviscerating Guy Fieri for no like real reason?
Yeah, I mean, you think somebody whose job it is to like go to 5-star restaurants and eat there and write about them would be a happier, person, but I don't know.
Well, Ratatouille told us no. So, you have something else to say? I was going to try drag us back to the episode.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about how Tosh just comes in with her own 5-star meal of pizza and beer.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to make the same segue, but I was going to say, so Owen's watching, and then Tosh shows up. Towen, God damn it.
Hey, Towen.
Tosh shows up.
The ship name. Oh, my God. That's probably a real thing.
I'm just towing these trucks back.
Tony Edge of not inaccessibility, unacceptability. I don't know.
There's a word for that.
Yeah, walking that fine line. Well, Tosh shows up, and for some reason, she just starts complaining to Owen, not about him, but just I guess starts venting about other stuff.
About Torchwood, mostly.
Yeah.
Which kind of plays into that whole thing. I guess it was a couple episodes ago when Owen was like, I can't find anyone to love because no one really understands like what we do. And Tosh kind of felt the same way, that like no one understands what they do at work. And
Yeah, which kind of made me think: has this been a recurring thing? Does Tosh just kind of show up and do this? Because if so, it would kind of explain Owen's dislike of her.
I don't think it is. I think it's because Owen says something like, "Oh, and this is supposed to be the date, right? The date that you've always wanted. You got your pizza and your beer, and here we are, and all it's missing is a pool table." And that whole like rant where he goes off at her, to me, kind of seemed like implying that this wasn't a regular thing.
Right? Yeah, true. Because I mean, as soon as she starts talking, Owen's just not listening whatsoever. He's just zoning out and thinking about other things. And we go back like outside of the frame story, and we get him talking to the woman on the roof. And oh well, first of all, okay, she litters. This is the point where she just flicks a cigarette butt off the building, which is like, I mean, really, like I know you're not going to be in this world much longer, but we are.
That one cigarette butt is the thing that killed all of us. Like in the Simpsons movie, when like they're like, if we throw one single piece more of trash into the lake, it'll become toxic.
I forgot about that. The one time The Simpsons has been funny in its like 30-year run with the movie.
Probably because they paid an actual writing staff to write it. Hey yo, I don't actually even know if that's a diss or not. I don't know how it's written.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I know the first couple seasons were animated by Klasky Shupo or Supo, however you pronounce that, and then they just outsourced it to South Korea.
Nice.
Which isn't a slight, I guess.
I mean, it. You. Whatever.
But yeah, so he's talking to the woman on the roof. He's telling her, and I think this is the point in the episode where it's revealed that he's just revealing Torchwood secrets left and right.
Yeah.
Not just this story. I was a little unclear until this point. Like, I kind of thought that maybe we were getting the Torchwood in-depth secrets and story, and he was just kind of giving her the bare bones, like, yeah, I was kind of replaced at my job, like I felt left out type thing. But no, he's just revealing their secrets.
Yeah. Turns out the answer to that is no. He is just revealing state secrets because why not? I guess.
Yeah, maybe Jack later on comes and retcons her because he seems to just be tailing Owen for this entire thing. So who knows?
So what happens next?
He goes off on Tosh. We kind of already explained this, but Tosh just tells him that he looks out of it, and he just snaps at her. You know, yeah, basically just makes fun of her for everything she's been doing for the past couple of weeks, like asking her on the stupid pool date and whatever.
And then he storms off.
Yeah.
He also he breaks his pinky. He's like, "You want to see what I am now?" And he's like, "This is it. That I'm broken." And he just breaks his pinky, and I was just like, "Yeah, pinky's never gonna heal." Owen, nice going.
Yeah, maybe this scene I felt was, I don't know, there was something unearned about this because he kind of goes off on Tosh for being like this misanthropic person. Although, I don't know. I don't know if this aligns with what you think, but what I've gotten from Tosh so far is that she's just like a little socially awkward, and she like, other than that, she's fine.
Yeah, I think it feel. I don't. To me, it didn't feel unearned. To me, it felt like. How would I describe it? It doesn't feel unearned. It feels like Owen is unjustified in his rant. He's clearly taking out his own personal problems on Tosh. Because I guess my interpretation was just that Tosh needed someone to vent to about like work stuff, and everybody else on the team really has that. Like Jack and Ianto, can vent to each other. Gwen now can vent to Reese because he knows about Torchwood. But Tosh has always never really had anyone to talk to about Torchwood, and that's the part of the reason, actually, why she fell so quickly for the girl in Greeks Bearing Gifts was because the girl was an alien who understood everything Tosh was talking about, and Tosh
Yeah,
could
true.
talk to her about work. And so Tosh went over to see Owen and was venting about work because she needed someone to do that too. I think everybody should have an healthy outlet to vent about things too. It has always helped me personally. And then Owen just goes off on her, and yeah, so to me it doesn't feel unearned, just feels like Owen's unjustified, I guess, is my viewpoint.
Yeah, it's probably a better way of putting it. But, ever since we started watching The Prisoner for our Class Sci-Fi podcast, Inevitable, check that out, we've sort of been haunted by this this thing of people going into the water fully clothed. And lo and behold, Owen just jumps into Cardiff Bay.
Yeah, you see him running, and he's running, and he's running, and you're like, where is he going? And he's running down the dock, and I'm like, oh god, oh no, Owen. And he's just running down the dock, and you're like, no, oh god. It's like watching a train crash in slow motion, and then he jumps off the dock, fully clothed, into the bay, and I'm like, and he stays down there for 34 minutes.
Yeah, and this is where we learned that the thing from the beginning was not just some sort of visual representation. He actually was underwater.
Martha also explains that as long as he keeps exercising his muscles, they won't atrophy like dead bodies do when they're dead. Muscles atrophy. Which I don't know how this works when the blood's not pumping to get the oxygen to the muscles, but I'm not going to question it.
Yeah. When Owen finally comes up, Jack reveals that he's been, following him or whatever, and
Well, Jackson doesn't necessarily say he'd been following Owen, but that he got a report of a guy running fully clothed in denim jeans and jumping into Cardiff Bay.
yeah, true. Another thing that you wouldn't think Torchwood would be called in for.
Yeah, do you think the police officer's sitting at the crime scene? He's like, guy ran into the ocean fully clothed. This sounds like a job for Torchwood. Which is the regular police don't want to do their jobs. So all the weird mundane things they get called in for, they're like, no, we don't do weird people jumping fully clothed into the ocean. That's Torchwood. That's Torchwood. Cross my heart, that's Torchwood.
It could have been an alien, like.
Yeah, who jumps into the ocean fully clothed? I think he's an alien. That's why we're calling it Torchwood, personally. Jack's just like, what the hell?
Well, regardless, Owen comes back to Torchwood. He serves them the tea in the next meeting. They're still talking about the coffee. Sorry. They're still talking about Parker because they need someone to infiltrate his place.
Yeah, they're basically planning the heist of the century. And there's like heat sensors and guards, and Owen's like, looks like you need someone who doesn't give off body heat.
So he's the one for the job. During this scene, there's another, I guess this is becoming a running trend now too, of, I guess, not just Jack referencing, literature, but just anyone, because Ianto mentions that Parker has been reading The Fog by James Herbert. Yeah, just not Herbert's. It's just Herbert. It's just James Herbert. I've never read The Fog. Apparently,
Nope,
it's
I
about
haven't either.
a deadly fog, like a sci-fi fog that kills people or makes them go crazy.
Sounds kind of like The Mist.
Yeah, I looked it up because I'd never heard of it, and one of the see also things on Wikipedia was Stephen King's The Mist. So I don't know which came first, but yeah.
Stephen King's The Mist is interesting because it's one of the few stories that Stephen King admitted the movie had a better ending than his version. I mean, I haven't read the book or watched the movie. I just know the strange fact that Stephen King basically straight up said if he wrote the book now, he would want to use the ending that they made up for the movie rather than the one he wrote originally.
Yeah, I think a lot of his adaptations have had different endings for whatever reason.
That's probably because Stephen King's one weakness is ending things.
Well, also probably for it because the ending involves like an underage orgy. So
Well, I mean, going back to the like being bad at anything, like Under the Dome was just like at the end he was like, oh yeah, it was aliens.
M Night Shyamalan style. I don't actually. I mean, now that we're on that topic, another tangent, but hey, like I don't know why the M Night Shyamalan twist ending has become such a meme because, like, there's foreshadow like. Why is it a meme that M Night Shyamalan endings come out of nowhere when they actually are heavily foreshadowed? Like in what the Sixth Sense? No, not the Sixth Sense. What's the one movie where the guy's actually dead? It is the
That's
Sixth
the
Sense.
Sixth
Yeah,
Sense.
it was
That is the
heavily
Sixth Sense.
foreshadowed.
Because I think it's not because of that. I think it's because of the movie The Happening, which is with Mark Wahlberg. That's an M Night movie that I believe was after The Sixth Sense, and I've never watched that movie. But from what I understand, that movie is the reason why that became a trope. Because apparently in that movie there's a huge twist that's not telegraphed like at all.
Yeah. Huh. Well, okay then.
I've never watched The Sixth Sense either. Sixth Sense
Yeah, I've
either.
never watched it either, or the full thing.
So
I guess, know that it was heavily foreshadowed, or I guess I've heard that it was the big twist. It was heavily foreshadowed, which I just spoiled out of nowhere for people. But hey, so Owen goes to break in. He incapacitates some guards using both wit and brawn, and his newfound abilities now that he's dead and he can just electrocute himself, or rather prevent
yeah.
himself from being electrocuted.
Well, he can electrocute himself but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
die from it. So anyway,
He gets into Parker's room, and Parker's basically on his deathbed, literally. He's hooked up to a bunch of machines keeping him alive.
and so it's time for the Amazon X-ray fun fact of the week. And this week, okay, Amazon was really slacking this week. Not a lot of fun facts. In fact, this was the only one, which is that Richard Briers, sorry, who plays Henry Parker, grew up in a flat that was above cinema.
Maybe that's why he got into acting.
Maybe.
But, if that were the case, maybe Amazon would have included that, which leads me to believe that it wasn't. That would be part of the fact then, right? Like if he was like, yeah, I watched a lot of movies as a
Yeah.
kid and that's what I always wanted to do was be in them. Like that would make for a funner fact.
As I've discovered for Triple X that we'll be recording
Check out Triple Play, a movie
soon,
trilogy
the,
podcast.
the Amazon fun facts may not be entirely
Yeah.
accurate, although
Yeah, one for the Triple X, for the first Triple X movie was just dead wrong.
well, okay, so the I'll explain it here because somehow I think that the crossover of people who listen to both is pretty slim. The fact was that the first Triple X movie, the reading of the fact that I remember reading said that the first Triple X was Vin Diesel's first movie appearance, which is dead wrong because he was in Saving Private Ryan, The Iron Giant, and Fast and the Furious all before this. I think the reading it was supposed to be. I think the fact was supposed to be that it was his first appearance as the leading man because I think in the first Fast and the Furious, Paul Walker is actually considered the main character,
Yeah.
not Vin Diesel's character. So I think the fact was supposed to be that Triple X was Vin Diesel's first role as like the leading man. So it was inaccurate, but not necessarily entirely wrong. Just the way it was
You
worded,
mean
it
the
was wrong.
Iron Giant isn't the main character of the Iron Giant?
You mean it's not as you mean him just going Superman wasn't a lead role?
Is that why he got the role as Groot, honestly? Is that because he had played the Iron Giant? And
Maybe that's something I ask James Gunn.
Which is like, it's a very similar role. Like Groot only says Groot, and the Iron Giant only says like a few words. And he has kind of a similar ending too, where he gives his life to save everyone, and then kind of comes back at the end.
Spoilers for Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Yeah, now that I say that out loud, it's like yeah, he's literally the same character, except the Iron Giant is way cooler, and in a better
Whoa, you
movie.
don't like when Groot... I liked Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely up there as one of my like top 3 Marvel movies that I would consider good movies. The rest of them I consider like they're good in the way that like they're popcorn fodder, but I wouldn't consider them like paragons of cinema.
Yeah, even that first Guardians of the Galaxy, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I don't really like, but hey.
Thor Ragnarok. Now there's a movie that like is actually like that's a pretty good comedy on its own. Like even removed from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's like actually a well done, like well made comedy movie.
Is
Which is why I think it's one of the best Marvel
is
movies.
is that like a joke? Like it's supposed to be action, but you're saying it's comedy?
No, no, it's actually no, no. I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious. It's actually like a really
Huh?
good comedy. And Taika Waititi like made it as a comedy. So
Huh?
he's a very talented director who, I mean, Jojo Rabbit was also very funny and also very heartbreaking. Jojo Rabbit's one of those movies that halfway through takes a hard left turn to like a completely different kind of movie and you never see it coming. Even now that I've told you it, you still
Right.
won't see it coming.
Well, so Owen confronts Parker, and Parker is using this alien artifact, which he calls, I think it was the Pulse. Yeah.
The Pulse.
He says
Yeah.
it's keeping him alive, but when Owen examines it, he reveals that it's actually not doing anything. And that it was basically
Right.
just a placebo, and that I guess it was, I don't know, just his will to live, or the machines, or maybe he's just not as sick as he thinks he is.
Well, Owen says it's hope that's keeping him alive, so I guess the will to live.
He describes how he's had this, like, life full of action and adventure, and how he's done, like, a ton. This was weird to me. I thought he was going to go into this whole thing about how he regretted his life, but he was like, no, like, I don't regret anything. But here I am, and I don't want to die.
He does say he wanted to learn about the aliens and he wants to know, like, he has to know that it's not just us here. He basically doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah, he knows about Torchwood, too. He's like, you're from Torchwood, aren't you? I think is one of the first things he says to Owen.
Yeah, like what's his name in Random Shoes who just stalks Gwen. I guess Henry Parker just knows everything about the Torchwood team because he compliments Tosh
Yeah,
on
he
her
does kind of
legs.
have that stalkerish, yeah, random shoes guy whose name I forgot thing when he mentions Tosh, yeah.
Can't believe we forgot the name of the guy in Random Shoes, considering he dies and he's the main character of that episode because he's dead. And also, like, even in this episode, one of the things they mentioned that Henry Parker purchased was a Dogon eye, which was the thing that what's his name had in Random
Oh,
Shoes.
yeah, you're right.
Eugene.
Yeah, it was Eugene. Yeah.
Eugene. This is where Amazon fun fact number 2 comes in, which is not a fun fact. It's just an observation, either by someone at Amazon or whoever wrote this. They labeled it as a goof because they were like, so Henry Parker starts coding and he dies, and Owen tries to give him CPR and then realizes that he can't give Henry Parker any air, and he tells this to the woman he's on the roof with. But then the Amazon X-ray is like, Owen has to be able to talk, Owen has to push air through his throat. So he clearly has the capability to do so. So
Yeah, explain that one. Owen. Imagine if they called him on that in the episode, like,
I kind of wanted to make that my wildcard Owen moment for the week because like seems like something Owen would do. But on the other hand, this episode does seem to be like a turning point for Owen, where he realizes that he doesn't have to be, I guess, a like dangerous wildcard, I suppose.
yeah, I guess. Well, so now we get the reason why Owen has has gone up to the roof and how he met the woman, whose name is revealed to be Maggie at this point. Which is that he was just walking through the streets and he saw her drop the picture of her and her husband, because we skipped over the entire backstory for her, which is that her husband died on their actual wedding day, and this is their anniversary, or what would be their anniversary. But she's been so distraught over it, and it hasn't gotten any better, and she now wants to kill herself. And the reason why Owen is now confronting her is that he saw he saw her drop the photograph, and he went up to the roof. And she's like, "So you mean you didn't come up here to die?"
He's like, "No, I came here to help."
Yeah, so he pushes her off the roof, doctor-assisted suicide, and no.
Wow.
No, he reveals that he has the pulse, and he reveals what it is, which is a response to some of the human artifacts that NASA had sent out. Which is it's a real world thing. I'm pretty sure NASA sent some stuff out there. Just I don't know what they sent: music, art, stuff like that.
Yeah. So on Pioneer 10 and 11, there's a golden plaque that has a 2D drawing of a human male and a human female, and then like a sort of map. It's got a drawing of the solar system and then directions to which planet Earth is. And then on Voyager, they sent up a golden record that had music from Earth, as well as some specific phrase I'm not remembering that was like, "Hello, we come in peace," or something, said in like basically 50 different languages from Earth on the record. Not that like an alien's gonna find the record and know how to play a goddamn vinyl record, but
yeah, what was the reasoning? Like, yeah, that's kind of weird, right? They'd send up this Earth technology that, like, the record is one thing, right? If there are other civilizations out there, they probably have nothing like that and have no idea what it is, and that's only the appearance of it. They can't even access what we really wanted them to access, which is weird.
Well, also, I think printed on the face of the record, if I'm remembering correctly, were similar things to what was on the golden plaque that's on Pioneer.
Huh.
I'm looking now at the picture of the golden record to try and decipher what the hell these images actually mean. Oh, they wrote directions on how to play the record on top of the cover of the record in binary arithmetic. Like how the record needs to rotate at 3.6 seconds for one rotation.
Huh. Well, cool.
And then also like what a stylus looks like, and interesting.
Yeah, wonder if any of them were ever, received, or maybe they're still like in the solar system. Who knows? I don't know.
Voyager has left the solar system, actually. Voyager became the first man-made object to leave the solar system. And it was pretty recently, too. It was like 5 years ago, even though it was launched in the 70s. Like, that should give you a sense of scale, like how big the solar system is.
Yeah, wonder where it is now.
Far beyond the sky. That's the plot of the first Star Trek movie. Oh, I just spoiled the end of the first Star Trek movie. Oops. But it's from the 70s, so whatever. But basically this alien probe comes back to Earth and like starts destroying stuff, so they try to communicate with it, and they go up and they discover the probe is like a Voyager probe. They got it assimilated into like alien technology and then like gained sentience and then went home, so to speak, and tried to communicate with humans, but it had become so alien that it like couldn't anymore.
Huh. Well, this is similar, minus the death and destruction. I mean, this is a response to one of those probes. Weirdly enough, it kind of continues the space whale thing, where it didn't do this at the end, but when they're in Parker's room, it kind of emits a little noise and it kind of sounds like a whale.
Yeah, and then it shows like this visual kind of image and kind of playing on what we were just talking about. Like, would an alien know how to play a record? Like, we're looking at this as humans. We're like, oh, this is just a really pretty light show, but maybe to the aliens who sent it, like, this is a detailed map and instructions on how to get to their home planet. We're just looking at it like,
Yeah.
ooh, pretty lights.
Yeah, it basically just looks like a bunch of tendrils coming out of the thing.
Whack.
Yeah, that's how it ends too.
She decides not to kill
Right.
herself.
I mean, yeah, imagine like at the end of all that, she's like, "Well, it was nice meeting you, Owen," and just throws herself off.
Well, that's
the roof.
nice and all, but, like, it doesn't help me.
It does. I mean, I guess this is a good segue into what I kind of wanted to talk about, which is why I thought the ending here falls a bit flat. And I think this is related to where, like, I thought this was all going to be leading up to some, and I don't even know what this would be, but some relationship between Parker and this woman or something connecting them, which is why Owen, is now here and is now trying to talk her down, so to speak. But it's not. At the end, he just kind of like, he's just like, yeah, and I was just walking on the street after all that happened, and now I'm here.
So you think it falls flat on its face because it's so, like, mundane?
Well, yeah, it's so disconnected, and I guess I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to have some more connection. I guess it's not like, I guess it was just letting my expectations get the better of me, but I don't know.
I think you would just. I think in a way you kind of expected this to be like a Stephen Moffat thing where everything is connected. So every little event can't exist in isolation from each other. And Russell T did that to an extent too.
Yeah.
So we're kind of being conditioned this way. I actually liked it for the fact that it was literally just Owen walking down the street. Because I actually think that this episode has like a really nice theme and message to me, which is that like anybody can be a hero. Like even Owen, who he was a doctor and he was a great doctor and he saved hundreds of lives or whatever. But then he became kind of an asshole and he explains how like all he could do was like eat food and then he would go to Torchwood and then he would have sex. Like that's all he did. And even him, like at the end of the day, realizes like he can be a hero. And he doesn't take like the doctor or Jack or Rassilon to save this woman who's just on the roof because she's been having a really rough time of it for the past year and she wants to end it all. And so I kind of liked in that way. I think it ties into that theme that anybody could be the hero. That it's just completely almost removed that Owen was just going home after having this grand adventure, and at the end of the day, he saved, potentially he saved hundreds of lives because they think that the alien device is going to explode. But what really matters to him at the end of the day is the fact that like there's one girl's on the roof and like she might kill herself.
Yeah, that definitely that is what it is because like. Now, because as we learned in Adam, Owen became a doctor. He wanted to save lives, which is, I would assume, a pretty commonplace reason for becoming a doctor. And, like,
I would hope
probably
so.
one of the, best reasons to become one, I guess. But, like, yeah, now that he's not a doctor anymore, and, he saves this random woman's life, but not as a doctor. He just kind of does it as Owen Harper.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I like
it's
that.
kind of nice.
And I mean, not everyone's going to like that, but I like it.
It is, like, even that, like, that, though, kind of, I don't know. There's something weird about it, too, because at the end, we also skipped the scene where Martha leaves. She doesn't stay at Torchwood, and Owen is reinstated, I think. Or was he reinstated? Now I'm second-guessing.
Well, Martha does leave because she's
Yeah.
got another job and, like, she's got another job in her life. I don't think we actually like get any word that Owen's got his job back. I think Owen is just more accepting of the position. Besides, even if he has his job back as medical examiner, I think Jack's still not going to let him go out into the field. So I think it's still important to Owen to like recognize that even if he's not in the field, stopping aliens every week, he still has the ability to save people on an individual basis.
Yeah, true. Kind of sappy there.
Which, speaking of Owen, well, I don't. I mean, what was sappy in this episode was Henry Parker's 5-minute death scene, because it is really Henry Parker's death, and like in a way, I kind of did enjoy it though, because Owen promises after taking the pulse away when he says he'll take it to Torchwood and he'll come right back and he'll tell him all about the aliens and everything, but then Henry Parker dies. So I kind of also saw him telling this random girl everything about Torchwood as sort of him, kind of almost fulfilling his final promise to Henry Parker to tell him about Torchwood and all these fantastical alien things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Wildcard Owen. Mine for the week is when he grabs the woman and she's like, I don't care about any of your stuff. I just want to die. So Owen says, all right, let's do it then. And he just grabs her and starts running towards the edge like he's going to throw both of them off. And she like desperately tries to stop him and he goes, you're scared. You don't really want to do it. Like, all right, Owen. I mean, I guess it was effective, and I guess he wasn't wrong, but that could have gone wrong like so fast.
Yeah, like what if he lost control of his body and couldn't stop the momentum or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, shoot. I'm trying to find mine. Oh, mine was... God. Mine was just helping Maggie. Because it's a wild... Yeah,
just helping Maggie in general?
Sort of a wild... Like, Owen has not shown any consideration, really, for anyone other than himself. Even though... Yeah, he ostensibly became a doctor to save people, but... I don't know. It's just he goes out on this limb that he's never really gone out on, and it's a flimsy one, kind of, I would say.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. I think there's a turning point to his character when Henry Parker dies, and I guess we'll have to see if that continues or not.
I think it was Alex who comments on Facebook a lot and listens in, who compared Owen to Avon from Blake 7. Check out Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast. And that really, like, Avon had those moments too where he had this cold exterior, but you could see in Blake 7 when Anna died, and also when Callie died too, where he was hiding something, deeper inside or whatever. So yeah, I definitely see that comparison here too with Owen.
Yeah. He's going to become a good guy. Do you believe in good guys now?
God. That triple X.
I can't wait to just start dropping triple X quotes into my regular life and seeing who notices. Like how I started saying, I started this ironically, but then it became unironic. I started saying, have you betrayed us? Have you betrayed me? And then now I just say it all the time. Just dropping Blake 7 quotes into my regular speech. Can't wait to start doing that with triple X and seeing people going, what the hell?
Yeah, there actually were a lot of good quotes to take out of context from those movies. They're actually better taken out of context than in.
You mean like, try to save the world, get the girl, and try to look dope while doing it.
So much of those movies felt like 45-year-olds trying to like really appeal to like 18-year-olds and failing.
We haven't recorded that episode yet, but I highly, highly recommend anybody who's listening to this to listen to that episode when it goes out, because I can already tell it's going to be hilarious.
Anyway, I mean, we have a couple more segments to get through here, so let's get through them. How upset should Jack be? I was kind of torn on this because, I don't know, I feel like Jack kind of, in this episode at least, knows Owen better than Owen knows himself, where he knows Owen's going to come around, and he knows Owen has this soft, marshmallowy exterior, or interior.
Marshmallowy exterior?
Sorry, not exterior.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to affect Jack that much. I think he's just going to watch Owen become a better person and be like, proud of you, Owen.
Or maybe not, because as the preview indicates, we're finally getting a Gwen episode next week. So maybe Owen...
Thank God.
I mean, I don't know if you're being serious, but I actually am ready for a Gwen episode.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm being dead serious.
It's been too long. I'm even missing Reese for all the crap that I've given Reese and his character. Glad to see him coming back in full force next week when they have their wedding.
Yeah. Thank goodness. There's a random quote from Tasha in this episode when she's doing her rant that you probably didn't catch because she was fading out. But she says, Gwen, the first thing Gwen said to me when I came into work today was to apologize for not making me a bridesmaid. I mean, me, her bridesmaid. Can you imagine?
Yeah, more low self-esteem issues from Tosh. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Not unusual.
Speaking of Tosh, I don't think she really used any tech this week. I mean, maybe pizza boxes are tech, like, a box, like, is technically technology. You use it to carry things around so you don't have to hold things in your hands. So, guess so? I don't know.
I was going to say just like her communicating through the earpieces with Owen, I guess, was like the only tech I saw her use in this episode.
True. It's not even particularly cool tech. Like, it's not even alien tech. Like how I saw this thing online recently where it's like we're basically living in cyberpunk dystopia, but we don't get any of the like cool cyberpunk stuff. We just get like the surveillance state and and yeah.
Great. Yeah, if you've ever read any book that's got a cool like utopia or dystopia, we never get any of the cool bits.
Yeah, I mean we're living in Neuromancer where like technology is out of control and corporations are unchecked and just everything bad that could possibly be happening in the world is happening at but none of the cool stuff from that world.
Yeah, so we live in the Soylent Green universe is what you're saying. Like, really, watch Soylent Green, and that movie is like, there are no good parts to the universe they live in. Like, everything is just, like, gone to shit. Excuse my French. So, that's basically, like, that's Neuromancer without all the cool bits.
Yeah. Well, since Gwen really wasn't a major focus in this episode, I didn't really have any sense for her. I don't think she committed any.
No, she didn't even commit sloth this week because she was the one who agreed and really set Owen up with all the stuff he needed to get into the base. So
true enough.
Can't wait for next week when we can give her the sin of being pregnant with an alien symbiote.
Yeah, lust. God. So I guess that finally brings us to how many of Britain's 10 actors are in this episode. And I had two, so
two.
So I don't know. I guess just go for it.
All right, I'll take Richard Byers then, who apparently plays Bob in Bob the Builder.
Oh wow, I didn't actually see that.
He plays Robert in the UK version of Bob the Builder, which is that Bob himself? I'm not sure. Or is that Bob's dad? Because he also plays someone credited specifically as Bob's dad in one of the video games.
Huh. Yeah.
But I wish Bob is short for Robert, so...
Does Bob the Builder have a UK, like, version? Did they, like, remake it for the UK, or...?
Yes.
Oh. Gotcha.
Because he's specifically credited as Robert, UK.
I see.
He was also in Doctors. He was apparently a good friend of Kenneth Branagh and was in As You Like It. Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of As You Like It that turns it into a Hollywood musical.
Huh.
He was in the Watership Down TV show. He was in Love Labour's Lost. Actually, no, As You Like It was not the Hollywood. Love Labour's Lost was the one that was the Hollywood musical. As You Like It was when Kenneth Branagh finally made another Shakespeare after Love Labour's Lost tanked at the box office. He was also actually in Doctor Who as the caretaker in Paradise Towers. So there's a fun one for you. He was also in Much Ado About Nothing, Henry V, again, like all Kenneth Branagh's Shakespeare adaptations. Because lest we forget that Kenneth Branagh became a famous director by directing Shakespeare movies. And that's pretty much everything I recognized that he was in.
Yeah, he's had a really extensive career. I mean, he's been active since the 60s.
Yeah.
So I was looking for like, wow, is he in one of the like those old shows we've watched for Inevitable? But
Alas.
No.
He was in I was just looking now, he's in the movie Murder, She Said. Damn, I watched that movie. Who does he play in that movie?
Just an extra.
Kind of seems like it, honestly.
Do Hollywood stars get cast as extras? Well, I know he's not a Hollywood star, but like just like do big actors ever get cast as
Well,
extras?
this
Like
movie was 61, so it would have been right when his career started.
oh, true.
Oh my god, that's him? I remember
Yeah.
this part of this movie, and I remember this character. He's only in one scene, um, but he looks so different because he's so young. I would never have guessed that was him. If you had asked me to pick a character from the movie Murder, She Said, and which one was Richard Briers, that was not the person I would have picked, honestly.
We have no visual of what you're saying. Just
I'll put the pictures in the show notes.
okay, yeah.
I'll put the pictures in the show notes. Don't worry. Anyway,
Yeah, so the other actor I looked up was Christine Bottomley as Maggie Hopley. Another one of those last names that Torchwood likes to go for, you know, Harkness, Harper, Hart.
it's also
No.
Nick's, not Nick, Nathan's last name. Flight Through Entirety.
Oh yeah, Bottomley. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's also had a pretty extensive career. I mean, she's been in EastEnders, The Bill, a bunch of other stuff I didn't recognize, like Heartbeat, The Street, The Innocence Project, Massive, Hope Springs, The Great Night Out, or just Great Night Out, Back to Life, The End of the Effing World, which I've heard of.
I've watched a couple episodes of the first season of that on the recommendation of my ex, or my girlfriend at the time. Never finished the first season.
She was in The Nest, and she's in something called The Mini. A lot of those are pretty recent, so she's still out there, still acting, as you would expect.
Well, you might not necessarily expect that. Richard Briers passed away from emphysema a couple years ago.
Yeah, true, but he's also a lot older.
He was also a chain smoker.
Yeah, maybe Christine Bottomley is too. She was smoking pretty heavily in this episode, so never know. I guess that's her character, though, not her.
Yeah.
Like, and I always thought that like it would suck if you had to be a character who smoked and you didn't smoke and you were an actor. Like, too bad. Like, you just have to do it.
Well, they've got cigarettes, like fake cigarettes that are not actual smoke, they're water vapor. So,
So you just have to vape instead of smoke. Great.
well, like they don't put the nicotine in
Yeah.
it, so the like just straight water vapor. And that's the thing about vaping that was like how it went from like it was like e-cigs were an effective way to quit smoking because a lot of the times the people who designed e-cigs discovered that a lot of the times when people who were trying to quit would break would be because they missed the like motion of smoking, and an e-cigarette gave them the ability to do that without like the addictive nature of like nicotine and tobacco. But then like vaping became a thing, and the water vapor itself is not entirely harmless, but is like mostly harmless, to quote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is referenced in this book, this TV show. But then when they started adding nicotine and tobacco, that's when it became a problem again. And that's why like vaping now, even the vapes that don't have, you know, the addictive things in them and are just water vapor flavored, you know, whatever, are dangerous, is because it's like it's a very easy gateway. You know, you just buy some juice pack with some nicotine in it, and then you're addicted. Like,
Yeah.
boom, like just
Trust Your Doctor, an educational podcast.
yeah, you know. I tried out for Jeopardy in the past year
Oh, wow.
and actually made it to the final stage
Hey.
of auditions. Unfortunately, the very last stage, I didn't get enough of the questions right to move on, but they did invite me to apply again in a year's time when they had the next round, so I'll probably do that. But then I realized that so many of the like questions I was answering for all the tests for that, I knew the answer to because I had looked up some obscure fact for the podcast at some point. So you say that as a joke, but like actually, apparently I've learned a lot from this podcast. There you go. But otherwise, I don't actually have anything else to say about this episode.
Yeah, neither do I.
And I don't have any emails to read this week, so I'm done on my front. Are there any comments on Facebook that you want to read?
Just one from RG, who commented on Reset, saying that she liked Martha being on Torchwood. To read the comment verbatim, it's "I liked Martha being on Torchwood." Yeah, I do as well. I liked her. She obviously just had this sort of fleeting appearance, but it was a good, she was a good addition to the team. Yeah, I guess I wish she stayed around longer. I mean, yeah, she was only here for what, 3 episodes?
Yeah. And I agree. I think she brought a unique perspective to the team. She wasn't really, she's not as bad of a person as the rest of the team kind of have been made out to be over the course of the season. In fact, she's basically the exact opposite of the team. And that's not to say they are like terrible people, but they don't, Russell T doesn't make an effort to make any of the characters on Torchwood like good people. And Martha's the first person who joins the team who is, even if you don't watch Doctor Who, she comes in and you get this sense that she's not like as much of a, shall we say, depraved human being as the rest of the team.
She also plays a very different role on Torchwood than she did on Doctor Who. This is a post-Doctor Who Martha, and a post-Doctor Martha. I know we gave Martha, this character, a lot of crap when we watched Era, because she was basically Rose 2.0 and filled a lot of that same role. And here she's not that at all. So,
well, I think that was, again, because we were watching it right after Rose and because that was her role until she left. I do remember us like applauding her standing up to the Doctor and being like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and love you while you don't love me back. I'm going to go off and be my own person. And I think we really liked Martha when she did come back in Poison Sky and Sontaran Stratagem, if you remember that as well. I seem to remember us being very positive on Martha at that point. I think even in our retrospective, we noted that like all the bad parts of Martha are all of the parts of Martha that live in Rose's shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like it would be an audio from Big Finish, Rose's Shadow.
Big Finish. Yeah, if you're hiring.
They do hire pretty frequently, actually, for a lot of different positions.
Well, thank you for reaching out, RG. Always good to hear from you and always good to get your perspective on the episodes.
Yeah.
And on that note, if anybody else would like to reach out, you can find us or email us at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Owen Harper's death. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching Something Borrowed, but until then, the end.